Which Link would be the best roommate? Not exactly a straightforward question, especially considering that none of these guys are too keen on doors, and have little to no concern about property damage. Ultimately, I think it boils down to 3 candidates. At number 3, we have Twilight Princess. If you're friends with this guy and get kidnapped, he will stop at nothing to save you. Not even getting turned into a wolf will dissuade him. At number 2, we have Breath of the Wild. This Link will protect you from danger or die trying, and he's a fantastic cook. And finally, at number 1, we have the Wind Waker Link. This guy has got it all. He will save you from danger. He has a cool grandma that will hook you up with her great suit. He has a boat and will 100% let you ride in it, and above all else, he will break you out of prison. What is the best mini-boss in The Legend of Zelda? The Legend of Zelda franchise is riddled with powerful enemies blocking important items. Here are my top 3. At number 3, we have the Red Wizrobe from the Wind Waker. I've always been a fan of regular enemies suddenly becoming ultra powerful, and this mini-boss is the epitome of that trope, spawning in the mini-bosses from previous dungeons like it's nothing. At number 2, we have Igos du Icana. The aesthetic of conquering the challenges of a fallen kingdom and fighting the remains of a king is about as cool as Zelda can get. This was a clever and well-designed fight that almost makes up for the well section to get to it. Almost. It also has a cool Easter egg if you wear the captain's hat. Finally, at number 1, we have none other than Dark Link himself. Everyone has the core memory of realizing their reflection disappeared and subsequently being attacked by it. This is a cool fight that presents a real challenge. Plus, the developers went the extra mile to make Dark Link's health match the player's max hearts. What is the best version of Hyrule in The Legend of Zelda? A difficult question to answer, seeing as how it's constantly being ravaged by Ganondorf or whatever Avengers-level threat is most recently decided to rain doom upon the kingdom. Ocarina of Time might seem like a good option because of the upbeat atmosphere of Castletown as a child, but then a few years pass and suddenly it looks like a Resident Evil game. Maybe it's Wind Waker because there are entire islands where monsters cannot spawn. But then you have the threat that a giant bird might steal your daughter. Out of all the versions of Hyrule, the best to live in would be the Minish Cap. Even at the height of Vadi's power, nothing really changes. People keep opening shops, building houses. I don't think they even know what's happening at Hyrule Castle. All of this to say that we know what is the best boss in The Legend of Zelda. Here are my 3 favorites, but let me know what yours are in the comments. At number 3, we have Godon. Link is given a test by the gods, and this boss fight delivers on it. The feeling of running from a boss while explosions go off behind you is hard to match. At number 2, we have Galactos. I remember having a fun time fighting this boss during the first phase. I also remember wetting my pants when the second phase starts. The idea of using the boss's weapon against it was excellent. It would have to take the top spot if it wasn't for number 1, Colgera. At first, it seems like it's going to be a pretty normal boss fight until you get shot up and the whole fight takes place mid-air. Then the music hits you with Then, you defeat the boss by skydiving through it. This boss fight made me feel things that I don't even know how to explain to my therapist, making it, in my opinion, the best boss fight in The Legend of Zelda. Is Tears of the Kingdom a good game? Maybe. It definitely has incredible parts. The new abilities add a lot of variety to the game. The fuse mechanic makes fighting enemies interesting and necessary. The recall ability lets you do some really creative and janky things. Finally, the Ultra Hand ability is enough to give any casual player a degree in mechanical engineering. The music and atmosphere in the game is stunning. It has my favorite boss fight in the series, and they finally let Link put his hood down. There are definite downfalls though. The story was lackluster and disorganized. This led to Nintendo spoiling their own story to the majority of players. Trying to activate the sage's abilities is frustrating at best, and I'm pretty sure Tulin is the reason my dad left. My final analysis is that Tears of the Kingdom is an excellent game, but it could be better. 49 out of 52. What is the worst boss fight in The Legend of Zelda? The Zelda series has some of the most iconic bosses of all time, but it also has boss fights that single-handedly lower the life expectancy in the United States. At number 3, we have Moldor. You know what's even worse than almost beating a boss? Almost beating a boss 10 times in a row. If you get knocked off the platform, you have to climb all the way back up and start the fight over. At number 2, we have the Imprisoned. You might be wondering, which time? And that's the problem. The boss fight by itself would have been boring but fine, but I'm pretty sure forcing a player to fight this boss 3 times is a war crime. It gets worse when you have to fight the imprisoned 2 more times to get the Hylian shield. Finally, at number 1, we have Twin Mold from Majora's Mask 3D. This version of the game took an already mid-boss fight and made it so aggressively bad that I had to consult the internet to make sure I was doing it right, and then checked again on my second playthrough because I could not comprehend that this was the intended strat. What is the best minigame in The Legend of Zelda? Sure, the kingdom needs saving, but if I spend 30 rupees, I could get 100. It's not an addiction. I can stop when I want. At number 3, we have Octoball Derby. There's something about watching Link play America's favorite pastime that is so goofy, I love it. Also, if you equip any rod, he will use that instead of the stick. At number 2, we have the Treasure Chest game. This is a fun minigame that changes from day to day, but that's not the only reason I love it. If you come back as a Goron, the worker will give you a special prize. Gotta love that dad bod. Quickly, some honorable mentions are Rickety Coaster, Bomb Chew Bowling, Doggy Racetrack, and Sploosh. At number 1, we have Shield Surfing from Breath of the Wild. Call me Tony Hawk, cause I got the developers really took the raddest part of Twilight Princess and made it a feature, and then built a mini-game around this feature. The only bad part about this mini-game is that there isn't more of it. Let me know what your favorites are in the comments. What is the best dungeon in The Legend of Zelda? Throughout all 20 main entries in The Legend of Zelda series, Link has spent more time crawling through dungeons than I've spent in the gym. That's impressive, I swear. At number 3, we have Lorule Castle from A Link Between Worlds. This dungeon is what all other final dungeons wish they could be. It has challenges that test everything you've learned up to this point and more. And it has one of the best backing tracks of any dungeon. At number 2, we have the Forest Temple from Ocarina of Time. If you're looking for a dungeon that makes you think outside the box, then you're in luck, because this dungeon literally hides keys outside. Add that to the twisting corridors and you have a masterpiece on your hands. At number 1, we have Stone Tower from Majora's Mask. Does your girl have every characteristic you've ever hoped for, and she's a top and a bottom? That's not your girl, that's Stone Tower Temple. I don't understand how you can make a dungeon that even functions working upside down and right side up, much less make it contain interesting and clever challenges for every form Link can take. It's perfect. What will the next Zelda game be? Sadly, we didn't hear anything about a new Zelda game in the Nintendo Direct, but what will the next Zelda game look like? Well, it will most likely be an HD remaster, seeing as how we just got Tears of the Kingdom a few months ago, and Nintendo averages at least one remake between main series entries. So, which game is going to be remastered? I don't think it will be any of the 3D Zelda games, since they all have remakes already. If I had to guess, I would say the next Zelda game will be an HD remaster of the Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. They already have Link's Awakening as a blueprint for how it could function. All they have to do is run with it. They'll either do that or fulfill my hopes and dreams to make a Minish Cap remaster. What game would you like to see remastered? What is up with the Zonai? The Zelda series has a rich world filled with a multitude of fascinating races. We've got the Mogamas, the Uka, the Minish. Nintendo took one look at all these races and went, okay, but what if Goat? So who are these people? Well, here are 2 micro theories. Theory number 1, they're ancient ancestors of the Sheikah. They share similar eye imagery to the Sheikah, and both of them have very advanced technology. I would also include that the Sheikah have shrines in the huge Zonai mazes. Here's a picture of a Sheikah monk. Now here's a picture of Rauru. Notice any similarities? I sure do. Theory number 2, they're just straight up aliens. Like seriously, some random lizard goat people descend from the sky with advanced technology and they build incredibly complex structures that baffle modern science? Yeah, right. I know an alien when I see one. Who do you think the Zonai are? Who is the best NPC in The Legend of Zelda? The Zelda series is full to the brim with characters that range from Paper Bag to Giga Chad. These side characters are polarizing to say the least and invoke strong emotions in the fan base. So if you disagree with me,
my name is Walter Hardwell White. I live at 308.
At number 3, we have Beetle. This goofy merchant inexplicably appears throughout the timeline. Not only does he give you a hearty thank you whenever you make a purchase, but he also has enough self-respect to drop Link out of a trapdoor. At number 2, we have Groose from Skyward Sword. He is given a satisfying redemption arc where he not only is helpful in the quest, but outright essential to Link's success. At number 1, we have the Happy Mask Salesman. He shows up and gains possession of a mask capable of causing the actual apocalypse, asks you to get it back for him, and refuses to elaborate. The best part about the Happy Mask Salesman is that he's not explained at any point. It is up to the player to determine who this guy is. He also gave us this shop, which I will always be grateful for. Who's your favorite NPC? Which Zelda game has the best remake. The old Zelda games are fantastic and always worth a playthrough, but they do have some, quirks. That's why they're remade for modern audiences. At number 3, we have Ocarina of Time. The 3D remake of Ocarina of Time was incredibly faithful to the original, but with some much needed graphical updates and quality of life improvements. At number 2, we have The Wind Waker. The addition of the quick sell on the Wii U was a godsend. No longer having to whip out my wand every time I want to do something was a much needed improvement. Additionally, the shortened Triforce quest made the worst part of the original game pretty fun. Finally, at number 1, we have Link's Awakening. I had a fun time playing through this game on the Game Boy. Imagine how I feel now that the game isn't bad anymore. The art style is beautiful and fits the game so well. It permanently maps the sword, shield, and Pegasus boots, and it shows us what The Legend of Zelda looks like as an anime. Which remaster was your favorite? What is the best item in The Legend of Zelda? There is a wide variety and bizarre assortment of magical and non-magical items that Link manages to keep in the pocket dimension on his belt. So which of these didgeridoos is the best? At number 3, we have Rock's Feather, or Rock's Cape, or Dorito Feather? Doesn't matter, it's a jump button and that's awesome. There is something so satisfying about jumping over gaps and cheesing your way through puzzles that aren't supposed to be solved like that. This feather is the original version of the rocket shield. At number 2, we have the good old bow and arrow. I know, it's super basic, but there's a reason this item makes it into every Zelda game. Well, almost every Zelda game. They gave the bow a permanently mapped button in Breath of the Wild, but it doesn't matter because the bow always occupies an item slot when I'm playing any Zelda game. Right next to number 1, the hook shot. A Link to the Past gave us this golden item, Ocarina of Time brought it to life in 3D glory, and Twilight Princess just straight up made a Spider-Man. The pure utility of the hook shot speaks for itself, letting you attack enemies, retrieve items, and travel long distances. What's your favorite item? Which Link wins in a fight? I'm talking about raw UFC style combat. We're not including any items. Because as fun as it is to compare items, it's pretty obvious that the guy that brings a tactical nuke wins the fight. So which default Link is the strongest? We can immediately disqualify any child version of Link because, come on, even I could beat up a 10-year-old. You can also rule out the Ocarina of Time Link. I don't think this forest boy really compares to 2 trained knights and a farmhand. This leaves us with 3 contenders. We have Skyward Sword Link, who is technically a trained knight who fought evil itself with nothing besides a sword and a shield. We have Twilight Princess Link, who is very strong due to his upbringing as a farmer, but ultimately I'm going to give this to Breath of the Wild Link because of his ability to do crazy crap with pretty much nothing. Sure, he slaughtered tons of Lynels and Guardians with the Master Sword, but it's canon that he's just as efficient with a pot lid. Not to mention the fact that he can challenge Calamity Ganon and Ganondorf in his underwear wielding nothing but a couple of sticks. Which Link do you think is the strongest? Here are a bunch of useless Zelda facts. I know it, so now you have to know it too. In Ocarina of Time, the Lakeside Laboratory measures the depth of Lake Hylia. We can measure that it is approximately 9 meters deep, which isn't that deep, but still deeper than my high school poetry. Twilight Princess takes place 100 years after Ocarina of Time, and this version of Link is a descendant of the Hero of Time, which means that that Link is canonically not a virgin. In Majora's Mask, there is no need to get magic beans to complete this game. Instead, you can make Link do a backflip on top of this door frame and then simply jump to the moving platforms. In The Legend of Zelda 2, Link actually has a speaking line as he ponders, what is under this table? For the Fallen Hero timeline to take place, most people assume that Link must die at any point along his journey in Ocarina of Time. But in order for A Link to the Past story to work, Link has to die in his final showdown against Ganon after defeating the human form Ganondorf. The Hero of Time seriously tripped at the finish line and screwed over an alternate reality. What's your favorite useless Zelda fact? What is the best rupee in The Legend of Zelda? Is purple. What is the hardest Zelda game? We can all agree that there are 2 kinds of difficulty. There's Get Good difficulty and there's This is Bullcrap difficulty. The Legend of Zelda series has a little bit of both sprinkled in, just for good measure. At number 3, we have the Master's Quest version of Ocarina of Time. This game is a fantastic blend of brutally difficult combat and puzzles that are so far outside the box, we don't remember where the box was. At number 2, we have the second quest from The Legend of Zelda on the NES. This by no means upped the difficulty in combat other than just adding more enemies, but it definitely upped the difficulty on puzzles, if you can even call them that. The odds of anyone finding where the dungeons are without using an internet browser are basically non-existent. At number 1, we have The Adventure of Link. I was about 6 years old when I played this game for the first time, and I was 15 when I finally beat the game. This game is an insane mix of unfairly difficult combat and garbage puzzles. How was I supposed to know I could just walk through that wall. Let me know which game you thought was the hardest in the comments. What is the best version of the Master Sword? The sword that repels evil, arguably one of the most iconic fantasy weapons of all time. I think this pointy blue glow stick has become more popular than Excalibur, which is the inspiration for it in the first place. So which one is the best? Well, based purely on aesthetics, because I don't have enough sleeve to rank power level, here are my top 3. At number 3, we have A Link to the Past. I like this one a lot just because of how different it is from the others. It also gets bonus points for being the first version of this weapon. At number 2, we have the Wind Waker. Whether or not you think this is the same sword as all the other iterations, you have to admit that it is stylish. It is also used in one of the best cutscenes of any Zelda game. It's a very cool sword for a very cool Link. At number 1, we have Ocarina of Time. This is where the Master Sword finally took its iconic form with winged crossguards and whatever this little knobby thing is. I will admit that I am 100% biased, as this is the version of the Master Sword that I own. Which version of the Master Sword do you think looks the best? Which Ganondorf is the strongest? It's a weird concept to think about, especially considering that this is the same guy, just rehashed in different versions. Maybe. That being said, I beat myself up all the time, so Ganondorf can too. Coming in at last place, we have Ganondorf from Wind Waker. This is the only iteration of Ganondorf to lose to actual children. This is a more methodical and conniving Ganondorf who doesn't want to kill anymore. He just wants a second shot at the Triforce. In third place, we have Ocarina of Time. He's more comfortable using brute force than Wind Waker, and the hero is unable to kill him, so he resorts to sealing him away with help from the sages. In second place, we have Twilight Princess. This Ganondorf was sentenced to execution and simply said no. His raw power summoned the Triforce before he ever touched it. He was so powerful that the sages banished him to a different dimension, but he still made it back to Hyrule, this time with 3 armies: Olbins, Twilly, and Malice. Finally, in first place, we have Tears of the Kingdom. Sure, he was sealed away by Rauru, but he still managed to wreak havoc on Hyrule for millennia. One of these attacks even resulted in the complete destruction of the kingdom. He even manages to outright destroy the Master Sword with some spaghetti. Who do you think the strongest Ganondorf is? Which Zelda is the strongest? Zelda isn't the person to start a fight, but she will gladly end one. While Link is off taking care of the punchy shooty stuff, Zelda is the only one that seems to have any kind of plan. Unfortunately, some of the games only use her as plot fuel, and we never get to see her feats of strength. At number 3, we have Tetra. This version of Zelda is an incredibly capable pirate leader. In fact, her competence frequently makes up for Link's mistakes. Who saves Link's sister? Tetra. Who saves Link from Ganondorf? Tetra. Who gets turned into a boring princess halfway through the game? Also Tetra, but she did some cool stuff first. At number 2, we have Ocarina of Time. This Zelda actively acts against the king's will in order to stop Ganondorf, and when that doesn't work, instead of hiding like some people I know, she just puts on a mask and continues to fight against Ganondorf, saving several sages in the process. At number 1, we have Tears of the Kingdom. She has the sealing power, she has time travel magic, she has an advanced understanding of technology, and she's a dragon sometimes. We see her hold off Calamity Ganon for 100 years by herself. They really just went all in on the power scaling in these last couple games. Which Zelda do you think is the strongest? Which Zelda games are canon? Link is an incredibly popular character, which means that his games are bound to get spin-offs and cameos. But which of these are real, and which ones are just fabrications? Well, obviously his appearances in games like Smash Bros. And Mario Kart are not relevant to the story of Hyrule, but there are plenty of games that might be less obvious. We have the Hyrule Warriors games, which seem to follow a consistent storyline, especially Age of Calamity, which shows the story of Breath of the Wild if they had been able to defeat Calamity Ganon. But all Hyrule Warriors games are not considered canon to the sacred timeline. We can also exclude the CDI games. In fact, we can burn them and then bury their ashes and pretend they never existed. Now, there are actually only 20 games in the series that are considered canon. The full list contains the following games: Zelda on the NES, The Adventure of Link, A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons, The Wind Waker, Four Swords, Minish Cap, Four Swords Adventure, Twilight Princess, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, Skyward Sword, A Link Between Worlds, Triforce Heroes, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom. What Zelda game do you wish was canon? What is up with a Fierce Deity mask? This is a super-powered item that Link gets his hands on after collecting every other mask in Majora's Mask. Ever since the creation of the Fierce Deity mask, it has sparked many heated debates about how this thing even works. There are 3 other masks that transform Link in this game. There is the Deku mask, the Goron mask, and the Zora mask. Each one contains the spirit of a fallen member of the respective race. This begs the question, what spirit is contained in the Fierce Deity mask? There have been many theories. Some fans claim that this mask contains the Treminian counterpart of Link. Other fans think that it is actually Majora that is contained in the Fierce Deity mask, and it is a plot to escape destruction at the hands of Link. While both are very interesting, neither of these theories have any actual evidence backing them up. But that's okay, because we have an answer from Eiji Aonuma himself. When asked the same question in an interview, he claimed that the best way to think about it
it is that the memories of all the people of Termina are inside of the Fierce Deity mask. This makes sense when you consider that you have to collect every other mask in the game to claim the Fierce Deity mask. What do you think the Fierce Deity mask is?
What is the best cutscene in The Legend of Zelda? There is a wild assortment of cutscenes in The Legend of Zelda. Some are really interesting and thoughtful, and some look like this. Here are my 3 favorites, but let me know what yours are in the comments. At number 3, we have Link defeating Ganondorf in The Wind Waker. This is a spectacular scene, and I use it all the time in my videos. Not only does it look cool, but it's also narratively satisfying, finishing off Ganondorf once and for all and leaving the Master Sword to vanish along with the rest of Hyrule. At number 2, we have Zelda saving Link in Breath of the Wild. I love this scene because it shows exactly why Link and Zelda are chosen. Link defends Zelda to the death and continues to fight even after he knows they've lost. Then Zelda steps in and sacrifices herself in a desperate attempt to save Link. Then it actually works. I love this scene. Finally, at number 1, we have Link saving Pamela's father. I love Majora's Mask, and this is why. For a moment, we are allowed to forget about the threat of the moon, and we just get to focus on this moment of a father and a daughter reuniting. I cry a little bit every time I watch the scene and think about my own family. I'm tearing up just writing this script. Which Link has the most money? It's no secret that Link acquires a large sum of rupees throughout his adventure. That being said, there is a pretty big discrepancy between how much money each Link gets. So which one is richer? At number 3, we have Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Link. This Link has the ability to carry an absurd amount of rupees. Simply from defeating enemies and collecting rare items, Link can easily get enough money to topple the economy of any village he visits. He also owns 2 houses, well, 1.5. At number 2, we have Wind Waker Link. He can't carry as many rupees as other Links can, but I don't know a single other Link that owns a private island. In the real world, the houses that Link is buying are around $200,000 to $400,000. An island, on the other hand, is around $14 million. That's not even considering that there are only 49 islands in the game, which means that Link owns at least 2% of the real estate in Hyrule. At number 1, we have Twilight Princess Link. This one is cut and dry. He essentially has an infinite amount of money because he saved this guy. As far as we can tell, he can't run out of money. Which Link do you think is the richest? Who is the hottest Link? It's time to face the facts.
Link is hot.
We know that Reggie is always right, so that begs the question, which one is the hottest? At number 3, we have Skyward Sword Link. Most of his outfit isn't doing him any favors, but his earrings are very helpful. They offer a flame guard when he is in hot places and will put out any fires that are on his tunic. At number 2, we have Ocarina of Time. When this Link wears his Goron tunic, he can briefly walk through lava without taking any damage. Later, in Majora's Mask, Link gets the Goron mask, which allows him to traverse lava indefinitely without taking any damage. Finally, at number 1, we have Link from Triforce Heroes. It might not seem like this Link is very strong inherently, but his fabulous wardrobe allows him to do some crazy stuff. He has a Goron costume that allows him to tank hits from fire, but it also allows him to just straight up swim through lava. Which Link do you think is the hottest? What is the scariest dungeon in The Legend of Zelda? The Zelda series is known for its elaborate and puzzling dungeon. It's also known for traumatizing children. So, which of these dank corridors is most likely to give you nightmares? At number 3, we have the Ancient Cistern from Skyward Sword. This is on the list for 2 reasons. First, I am terrified of drowning in the real world, and you send Link through these pipes here. Second, you get chased up this rope by cursed bokoblins. At number 2, we have the Arbiter Grounds from Twilight Princess. This sketchy prison is where the royal family kept their most dangerous criminals locked up. Why they did this in the Gerudo Desert, I don't know. It is complete with ghosts, mummies, and death trap, not to mention the giant sword sealing away a demon. At number 1, we have the Shadow Temple from Ocarina of Time. Some call it nostalgia, I call it childhood trauma. Imagine for a second little 6-year-old Swag being introduced to this ungodly creation at 5 in the morning. The atmosphere and general theming of this dungeon is the only thing from Zelda to actually give me nightmares as a child. Which dungeon do you think is the scariest? What is the best thing about The Legend of Zelda? November is upon us and I'm feeling grateful. So let's take a look at my 3 favorite things in the Zelda series. At number 3, we have the story. Some of the games in this franchise give you a pat on the head and tell you to go on your way. Other Zelda games went so hard on their story, even Brandon Sanderson would be proud. The best stories in my opinion are Twilight Princess, Majora's Mask, and A Link Between Worlds, in no particular order. At number 2, we have the music. The songs in this franchise are just fire. There's no reason that Koji Kondo needed to go so hard on this music, but he poured his soul into it and gave us masterpiece after masterpiece. My favorite songs are the Colgera Battle, Telltale Heights from Link's Awakening, and Lorule Castle, in no particular order. At number 1, we have the dungeons. You can have a good story and great music, but if the gameplay isn't
isn't good, then you might as well just make a movie. The dungeons in the series breathe life into the world and make everyone feel like a genius when they figure out a puzzle. My favorite dungeons are the Forest Temple, Stone Tower, and the Wind Temple, in no particular order. What is your favorite part about Zelda? In no particular order. Which Link has been in the most games? This little elfie boy has been reincarnated many times, but sometimes it's literally just the same dude from game to game. So which has the most games under their belt? At second place, we have a tie between 5 of the Links: the Hero of Time, Hero of Wild, Hero of the Winds, Hero of Hyrule, and the new Hero of Hyrule. Each of these fellows have appeared in 2 games each. For the Hero of Time, it was Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. For the Hero of the Wild, it was Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. For the Hero of the Winds, it was Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass. For the Hero of Hyrule, it was the original NES title and The Adventure of Link. For the new Hero of Hyrule, it was A Link Between Worlds and Triforce Heroes. But that's nothing compared to this juggernaut, because in first place, we have the Hero of Legend. This Link appears in 4 separate games: A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Oracle of Ages, and Oracle of Seasons. This guy is literally going on adventures in his sleep. Which of these Links is your favorite? What will the Zelda movie look like? After the release of the Mario movie and the more recent release of the FNAF movie, I've been wondering how my favorite series would be adapted. We saw the partnership between Illumination and Nintendo for the Mario movie, and although that art style worked really well for the Mario series, I'm not so sure that it would carry over to the Zelda franchise. I think I would prefer something a little less squishy and a little more rugged. An anime style for a Zelda movie would work great, maybe done by Studio Ghibli or Studio Trigger. But what about story? Which game would they adapt into a movie? I can see it going one of 2 ways. First, they pick one of their heavy-hitting titles like Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess. If they do this, I hope they base it off the manga for the title. My pick would be the Twilight Princess manga. I think it is the most put together story. Option 2 is they create a new story that celebrates all of the different stories in The Legend of Zelda. This would basically mirror what other video game movies have done recently. I'm not opposed to the idea, but I'd rather one of the legacy stories. What do you think the Zelda movie will look like?